This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the launch of Garland issue number 33, To Touch. And I'm speaking to you from Melbourne, otherwise known as Naarm, the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to the ancestors of the lands where you come from. And this issue is an opportunity to think about touch. Previously, we've had taste, smell, and sound. And with touch, clearly that is a challenge in the medium that we're working, but it's an opportunity now to just think about what it is that we are touching each individually. It may be a cup of tea, it may be our pockets, it may be the mouse or the keyboard. Although we think of the cloud as being a frictionless medium, it's clearly something that we experience in our embodied state. So it's worthwhile just reflecting on that at the beginning as we start this conversation. And Carolyn joins us, as does Louise.
Hi.
And so this is the culmination of the Sensorium series. And it's an opportunity, as well as thinking about the unique value of touch as a language of creativity, also a chance to think about how those senses come together. And we'll look at some works that manage to do that in quite remarkable ways. To begin, though, I'd like to invite Louise Hanby, Dr. Hanby, to say something about the person to whom this issue is dedicated, Mavis Ganimbar. And Louise has written a beautiful essay as a tribute to her, which I'll put up on screen now. Louise, would you like to tell us a bit about?
Oh, yes,
Mavis?
Thank you, Kevin. I've written this article as a tribute to my old friend Ngatu. It is my hope that this will interest other people who've known and worked with her over her career as a fibre artist from Elcho Island, and others who wish to learn about her and her work. It's not a complete story, as I have not been closely connected to her over 20 for the whole time since I first met her, but it does touch on major accomplishments and events. There are many others who can contribute to her story. She was a creative person who was willing to try new things, and once accomplished, was keen to teach others and share her experiences. She was an innovator of form. As a maker of jewelry and things worn on the body, she was one of the first Yolngu to create pandanus beads by looping. She made wonderful, quirky items like a backpack from pandanus and a pandanus phone case. Feathered trees and small ancestral figures were part of her repertoire, along with bags and baskets. As a holder of cultural knowledge, it was a pleasure working with her on museum collections of objects and photographs. She has increased the knowledge base of the Donald Thompson collection by sharing information, particularly about her father Mora and his brother Daperin. One of her greatest achievements as an artist was being awarded the Australian Design Centre 2020 Living Treasure Master of Australian Craft Award. Unfortunately, life intervened with COVID and then later her own illness, so this did not come to fruition. Now it is time for everyone to help remember Mavis Ganimbar. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Well, thank you so much, Louise. It's certainly important to remember Mavis, particularly since the exhibition that was to be in her honour was no longer happening because of her untimely death. And this article's been shared with people on Elcho Island and been greatly appreciated, and we hope to work with them to have stories of the next generation coming through as well. But this provides a very important reference point. So thank you so much. Louise,
Thank you.
now I'd like to invite the guest editor for this issue, Yasmin Mesri, to tell us about her impressions editing, gathering stories, and reading the articles in issue number 33. Welcome, Yasmin.
Thanks, Kevin. And I'll just be brief, because I think what I'm most excited about today is to hear from all of you and to kind of see some of the things that we've got to read, you know, for me over the last few weeks, and for all of you since the issues come out a week ago, I guess, and to hear a bit more. But yeah, look, I think touch was a really interesting theme. What I take from this experience is I think there's common threads of a connection. You know, touch is a sort of way of grounding, meditative healing, but also sort of a connection to something bigger, to community, to tradition. And it's interesting to see those threads kind of come from all across the world in the stories. So that was really beautiful. Like Kevin said, I think it's really hard to chop off a sense and then just focus on that. And so it was also really interesting to see the way that, you know, touch can interplay with sound or with taste or with you know, other kinds of experiences. So it was really fantastic to get to see read all of your work, and yeah, also to speak to people along the way. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear a bit more today. Thank you.
Thanks, Yasmin. And I must say that it was Yasmin's article on Instagram way back when, the impact of Instagram on ceramics, which was an inspiration for this issue. So it's great that you could connect here. And now we go into the first of the ways of touch, as Yasmin articulated, that is to bring into contact with the body. And a particularly poignant way of doing that was through the article on textiles and dance, in collaboration with our partners in the MAP Academy. And I'm very pleased that Krishna Uni has joined us to talk about her article. Welcome, Krishna.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, everyone. I'm very excited to be here and to have contributed to MAP, to Garland through MAP Academy, where I work as a researcher. My article, Dancing Bodies, Moving Touch, looks at how touch sort of facilitates a very intimate relationship between dancers and their costumes. For this, I primarily studied the works of American photographer Bryna Blasco, who in her book Dance of the Weave, as well as across her practice, focuses on the very important connection shared between handloom weaves and dance in India. Both of them in India have very rich traditions that go back centuries. At MAP, we have access to some of her wonderful works, which she generously shared with us for our textile course. And so I'm a dancer myself, so I was quite excited to see some of those images, because I think they're very striking in how they sort of visualize movement, stillness, rhythm, all of that. And everything sort of starts with touch. And it's sort of, you know, it's materialized through in the ways in which it touches the skin of the dancer. And, you know, it sort of defines the dancing body itself, the way the dancer drapes the sari around her, and how it moves on stage. So it facilitates movement also in a way. So all of that sort of came about quite nicely, I think, and I could connect it to my experiences as well as a dancer. And while writing the article itself, I was attending a workshop on Kodiyatam, which is an ancient Sanskrit theatre tradition from Kerala. And there the master was telling us, so it's a form that places a lot of focus on expressing through the eyes. And he was telling us how, you know, the eye has the power to touch. And that sort of made me think of, you know, other ways of touching that's not just physical, that's not just through physical contact with the body. So in the latter half of the essay, I sort of go into, you know, other ways of thinking about touch as well, through Indian philosophy, through dance theory, through makeup, because that's also a way in which we sort of, through touch, transform into a different person altogether. in a way, I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for the dancer, and that's what I've tried to explore here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Krishna. And her article is also a terrific exposition of the Indian philosophy of touch. So it adds to the thinking behind this issue. And it's interesting what you say about use of eyes as touch, because one of the principles that came through this issue is that you can't touch without being touched, that there's a reciprocal relationship in touch, which normally is very different to sight. But obviously when you're exchanging glances, it's a form of touching in that manner. So thank you so much. And now it's great to have Marta Figueiredo, hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, who wrote a wonderful article about her piece of the elementary abacus.
Yes.
Welcome, Marta.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you. I was wondering if there was going to be a scroll through my article. Let's just see it. It's now visible. So I'm back. My background, I'm Portuguese. I studied architecture, and for 20 years I worked as an architect. And only in very recent years I started to dive into different disciplines, more artistic disciplines. And when I was invited by Kevin to contribute to this issue about touch, immediately the element that came obviously was the elementary abacus, the piece that I have worked presented in 2021. It's a playful and sensory exploratory furniture piece. So I work in the realm of furniture design, but experimental design. And I wanted with this piece to challenge the conventions or standards of what design is, and of what an object can offer to the user in general, especially also including users that have different physical and intellectual abilities. With this in mind, I made the piece engaging and playful to remind us of our inner child on us. And the multisensory elements make it more accessible, more open to individuals to connect with. So the elementary abacus takes inspiration from the simple form of the traditional counting bead toy, and is composed of colorful beads that can be manually moved along a tabular blue arch to produce sound. I'm just going to wait for the image so you can see it. You can see there's like a golden bead. There's a very tactile wool cylinder, and then there's like this kind of soft pink coral color. And so I wanted to always bring this idea of sweetness in the colors, but also think about the tactility and the fact that you're going to move it. Each one offers something. So for example, the pink sphere and the golden sphere, when you move them, they produce a sound. So it's kind of interesting to accompany movement and touching with a sound element. So it has internally a little small winding machine that as you move it, it starts to produce sound. Each one has an individual sound. Then as you move the 3 bits to one side, it kind of releases the space for a table. So it kind of, in a way, I was thinking of the piece for a domestic environment, like kind of like a coffee table on the side of the sofa, for example. So when you move it, it releases the table, and there's this blue table that it's made of jasmonite, which is a type of sustainable resin, and it's like, it looks like a terrat, so it's quite visually interesting element made of shells from the actually it has incorporated shells from the southern from the beaches in Adelaide. This was incorporated by Callum Hurley, who was a designer that I collaborated. So the piece itself has a lot of people who work on all the different elements. And then the other table that is, when you move the bits to the opposite side, so over the blue table, it opens the cone-shaped table that is covered in velvet, but it also includes like what they call a riddle that tells the story, kind of informs of what the object is, and is written in Braille. So whoever is able to read Braille can read what the object is. So it gives a little bit, in a playful manner, which is the principle of the object, it tells what the object is about. And then also incorporating to this table, there's a aroma diffuser. And it also informs about the piece. There's also this kind of collaboration between the different, each different sensory element kind of informs what the piece is. So, and for this collaboration, I work with Catherine, who is a perfumer who works at Aesop, and she helped me to kind of create this element, and we had like long discussions about what smell and color combinations, so it's almost like how the two combined, what feelings it can give. This piece, I work and had conversations with some of the students I teach at LCI, and one of them has, since a child, he's been diagnosed with synesthesia, but his condition is so strong that his parents thought that he had some kind of other, like some kind of disability, because as a child, they thought he was potentially autistic, just because he had such a strong reaction to color, because every time he sees color, he will see sound, he will hear sounds. So that disturbed him quite a lot as a child. So now he understands what condition he has. So when we was discovering and working about this piece, I was having in mind the different abilities that people have. We're not all equal, we're all different, and our response to our elements with our sensitive senses is totally different.
Thanks very much, Marta. And that certainly was the case with many of the blind, or the two blind stories, which showed that what we call blind is not an absence of sight, but just a different way of seeing, which has some very interesting creative expressions. And one of the great things about your article was the level of collaboration involved, not only with Vision Australia, but with people in the Jam Factory and so on, which I guess is an advantage when you're using very many different senses in your work. So thank you so much for that. And now I'd like to invite Jane Tho, to share with us her article about touch art. Jane, are you there?
I am. Can you? Yep.
Great.
Yeah, look, I work with a lot of different materials, but textiles is my favorite. And when I was thinking of my PhD topic a few years ago, I was wondering why textile art was having such a moment in contemporary galleries. And it seemed to me that I had this hypothesis that rise had happened in concert with the rise of the internet and our sort of what I call digital disembodiment. And so I was thinking, well, textiles are really tactile. They're against our skin all our life, and touch is, such an important aspect of textiles. So I focused my PhD on that. And during the reading, I came across a text by the French philosopher Michel Serres, which I would recommend to all of you. It's just the most amazingly readable philosophical text you'll ever see. And it's called The Five Senses. So all of you, I'm sure, would be really interested in it. And I just want to read a quote from him. Observe on the surface of the skin the changing, shimmering, fleeting soul, the blazing, striated, tinted, streaked, striped, many-coloured, mottled, cloudy, star-studded, bedizened, variegated, torrential, swirling soul. So you can see this is not a normal philosopher here. He just writes so beautifully. It's eminently readable. And what grabbed me about his writing on touch in particular was that he believes that the soul is in your skin. And I found that really an exciting thing to think about, because for centuries people have been grappling with the sight of the soul. Where is it? But it makes sense to me, because you can do without sight and hearing and taste and smell, but you cannot exist without touch. And In fact, I was talking to a palliative care doctor recently, and they said that the last sense to go is touch. So when touch is gone, the soul has flown, I was thinking. So yeah, I worked with the fibre of hair, which is a natural choice because it comes from the organ of touch, skin. And I discovered horsehair because of a frayed piece from my cello bow. And it was a really beautiful material to work with. It's got uniquely tactile properties, not floppy like thread and not stiff like wire, but something in between. And it was a real discovery to weave with it, to thread with it, and just to feel it against my skin as I was working with it. And I combined it with bronze. I don't know if there are other textile artists out there, but I find that working with something floppy all the time is really beautiful, but sometimes you just need something hard to get your hands on and to smash. And that was what was so great about working with bronze as well. I had the two tactile extremes there. What more can I say about this? Oh, yeah, just a few coincidences that came with my research. So I chose to work with hair, and because of the idea of the skin being the side of the soul, I was wondering how hair influences the way we feel. And I worked with a dancer who has alopecia, and it was really interesting hearing her talk about how not having hair affected her sense of touch significantly. And yeah, it was really great to work with her. And by coincidence, I also found when I was commissioning a piece for the dance that Anka did for my work, I found a cellist from Iceland, which is the place that I first started weaving horsehair, who also has alopecia. So I had these two people with alopecia working on a body of work that was all about hair. So that was kind of fun. Yeah, that's about it, I think.
Thanks very much, Jane. And it's great to have you back in Garland, and particularly an issue that suits your work so well. It fits so well. It's great to be able to give it a platform. Thank you so much. Now we go into the second way of touch, to grasp. And I call on Robin McKenzie, who seems to have disappeared. Maybe we'll go back to Robin. Oh, there she is. Robin McKenzie, greetings. Who was an essayist talking about string figures from Yokala, one of the wonderful essays as part of our archive, and comes back now to talk about the concept of handedness. What's handedness, Robin?
Yes, so I was just then looking through the index to this issue, and indeed the different types of touch which are gathered there. And I was thinking that the type of holding that I'm talking about in my article is different to touch as such, and its different meanings. I was thinking people themselves have a touch, like Mavis Gannon-Barr would have had a touch, her own touch in her weaving, and that's something that Louise can probably recognize. People talk about the touch that people have. What I am talking about here is holding, putting something in your hand and holding it. And it's something that I came across in a project which focused on collections of Indigenous stone tools that were found in local museums in country towns in New South Wales, in Australia, and largely collected by white settler farmers and donated to the museums. And in researching or in doing this work and talking to these farmers, they would often comment about how it was just amazing that, particularly with the hand axes, of course, that they would put it in their hand and it would just fit, and they obviously felt, and they articulated the idea that it was like, you know, that they found this on the ground, and it was like it found them as much. There was some idea of it being fated because it fitted so well, and that this is actually quite a common idea. And then so I was listening to 100 Objects, the British Museum, The World in 100 Objects, and it starts out with some stone tools, and I find it quite amusing the way that both Neil McGregor, the director then of the museum, and David Attenborough talk about how holding those objects in their hand is like a handshake across time, does transport them. David Attenborough talks about, you know, understanding the need to, you know, scrape the hide of the animal because of this fit that he has with his own hand. And so because it had such a focus, it seemed to be something different to just touch. And I had this idea of handedness, and that it's about the hand, it's about the scale of the hand as much as anything. And I was thinking of other things which have that property, and the best one that I can come up with is the pinch pot, where you also hold that piece of clay in your hand, and it forms in a shape which is references your hand in that same way. So that's really what my article is about, is coming across people who are talking about this, holding something which fits their hand, and how that makes them think about those objects differently, and it makes them think about the people who made those objects as well, and to have an affinity, I suppose, with them.
Yes, it's a magical experience, I can imagine, but it's also a privileged one, isn't it, for the curators of the museums, because it's not one they necessarily avail to the public for obvious reasons. So it's an interesting challenge. Thank you so much, Robin, for that. And it's a perfect segue to Brun Boyer's jewellery, which I'm really pleased has a place in our issue. Welcome from France, Brun, and would you like to share with us briefly your story for this issue of Garland?
Yes, thank you, Kevin, for your invitation. It's very nice to speak up after Robin McKenzie, because I think my work is a lot about this kind of holding and touching the jewelry. Write and speak about my work, it's always a challenge, because it requires to make short an history that the construction is a years of unplanified constructions, but it's a nice opportunity, and I really thank you, Kevin, for the invitation. I've started putting in hands objects, which I call jewels because of their intimate relationship with the body, 20 years ago, more or less. It was a response to the need to make the jewel more present, provoking a strong sensation in the end. Perhaps a reaction to the comment I sometimes hear about my works, when people say, "Oh, it's a pity you can't wash the dishes with your jewel, or you can't take a shower," or something like that. And it may sound a bit vain of me, but I absolutely wanted to create jewelry that people wouldn't forget when they wore it. Jewelry is full of history and symbolism, and I wish people to be aware of it. It's a pity to wear a jewel unconsciously. And now I realize that most of works I've done since since then put this relationship between the jewel and the body in the center of my preoccupation. It's not always as tactile as in those first work, but the proposal of experiencing the jewel comes up regularly. Some of them are printed, some of the jewel I make are printed by the body. I mean, wearing the jewel, the wearer continue to work the precious metal. And in other case, wearing the jewel requires a special gesture, like in the pieces I show in this article. The wearer can pursue his or daily life, and my way of working with metal by making alloys myself, and sorry, and drawing inspiration from different ancient techniques that require time and patience, also echoes the invitation to slow down when wearing jewelry, and my jewelry especially. As I am very permeable to the world around me and its concerns, working with raw stones and literally putting them in the people's hands is perhaps my way of suggesting that we take care of what our planet offers us and stopping the body, calling for the full attention of the wearer, inviting him or her to share my sensations is also a way to take care of ourselves, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brun. It would be fascinating to know how people in the end use your work, because it seems to invite little rituals that focus the attention, because of course holding it means that you're prevented from doing other things. So it seems like a good way of punctuating time.
Yes, I hope.
Thank you so much. Now we go into the next way of touch, which is to leave a mark, a trace. And this is one of the first of Yasmin's stories we go to now, which is the mother's touch, a very primordial touch, of course.
So I did 2 interviews as part of this issue, and this is the first one. So Rochelle is a ceramicist. She was originally in Canberra. We didn't go to art school at the same time, but Canberra's a small place and you just get to know people. And, you know, I found it really interesting talking to her. She had her first child and the way that pregnancy and then having a child changed her work. And then we actually had an interview and she made this body of work for an exhibition that will be shown in a gallery in Coffs Harbour, if anyone's around there, in February, about the experience of being a mother while she was pregnant with her second child and then sort of immediately after having him. And so here, I guess, what Rochelle spoke a lot about was the sort of touch and her craving to touch clay again, as she was sort of separated from her practice, but then also, and so finding that a really grounding process, but then leaving kind of the physicality of the mark making on the work. But then also making this work at a time when she felt so overwhelmed by touch, you know, living with a toddler and a baby and having no sense of separation between your bodies and theirs, and that sense of blurriness of space. And as you can see in that last photo, in some of the final work, she ended up actually collaborating with her toddler, Caleb, to decorate some of these hand-built forms. So yeah, talking about the way that of motherhood change the way you build and touch and consider separateness. But more in the interview.
Thanks so much, Yasmin. And it's great to have a reference back to childhood because, of course, that's, you know, touch proportionately is so much more important at that particular stage. And now I'd just like to go to the Ukraine. I'll put up the article by Yulia Makluk, who unfortunately can't be with us, but she's left a statement that she would like you two here. As a creative person and someone who feels deeply for nature, I continuously think about the connections between art, the environment, and politics. What does it mean to be an artist in the age of the Anthropocene, when we humans have irreversibly altered the planet's biosphere? Is craft still relevant in times of disasters and war? Working in the realm of ceramics, which very much relies on materials from the Earth's crust and which emits greenhouse gases into the atmosphere during firing, I'm determined to find solutions to reduce this impact and see if my craft could somehow add to a positive change. I believe that along with technical inventions and policies, creativity is a crucial element in solving environmental crises. Art allows people to experience what it feels like to be a tree or to live in an ecological utopia. It is this lived and reflected experience. It is this lived and reflected experience that may make us want to change our ways. From this thinking, my ongoing project, Potters Save the World, was born. It is a distributed network of eco-friendly ceramicists and a book about sustainable practices. Do I believe that potters can save the world? Maybe not, but we can create beautiful, responsibly made bowls and spark a conversation about nature over a shared dinner. Definitely so. Okay, so thanks, Yulia, in absence. And it's nice also to have a story from Ukraine that is about creativity in a normal context, not just about struggle, showing the depth of that particular culture. We also have an article from Yunmen Jia on walnuts in China, which is a very interesting one, combined with the Kolomboi in Greece. But she's just had an evacuation order on her apartment, so she can't join us. There's been a fire alarm. So we go into the next way to be close, to connect, to be in community. And related to the ecological understanding of clay, I know that Jane Sawyer is a very keen advocate of clay as a material of ecological responsibility. And I'm very pleased that Carolyn Leach-Baholski has written about Jane's work. So welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you, Kevin. First, I'd like to say that it's been such a pleasure to think about the senses and sensibility over this year. It's been quite a strange year. So I've written about Australian studio potter Jane Sawyer, and we've met up during the year to converse about her pots and look at them and hold them. This conversation's been going on a long time. We've known each other for about 25 years. We first met when our children were at primary school. I've approached her work by the way of Basho, asking, now darkness falls, quail chirps, what use hawkeyes, to look at what we know about things without our eyes, or when our eyes aren't that useful to us, when we can know things about objects better through our other senses. Touching them, holding them, sometimes to your face, sometimes to your mouth with pots, is the way you learn about their temperature, the grist in the pottery, their inside and outsideness. Jane explained this to me when we first started talking about it by giving me a pot to hold from her collection, which was 400 or 500 years old, made by a Korean potter. You could still feel and see some of the imprints of his fingers on it. And we talked about how much we can tell about touch, about the interior pot as well as the exterior, what it can tell us about its volume as well as its surface. Holding this Korean pot, Robin's statement about a handshake across time really resonates, because this man you know, lived such a long time ago, but there's part of him in the pot. Jane introduced me to the idea of knowing with your fingers, and we talked about at the table with pots being passed from hand to hand, how that draws the heads of the diners together. We talked about the memory of touch on objects passing from one generation to another. And when her sons, which were so small when I first met her, left home and started their own houses, their own households, she made them a set of dishes each to take with them, which seemed to be metaphorically as well as literally still being in touch with her and her stories and their mother. Another thing that just occurred to me when Robin was talking was at Heidi Museum in the Modern House. It's made of Mount Gambier limestone, which is quite a soft stone. And where the kitchen used to be in the downstairs gallery, there's an indentation in the wall where people used to swing around the corner to talk to Sunday or John in the kitchen. So just by touch, even a stone has been altered. One of the reasons that I called this article Touchstones. There was another set of pots I didn't talk about in this article of Jane's, which are really interesting, maybe for another time, where she made the pots and then drew around the shadows that they cast and then made the shadows as pots. So in a way, she was manifesting the touch that the sun had through her studio window onto the pots. But maybe another time. Thank you.
Well, that's wonderful to look forward to that. Thanks so much, Carolyn. I'd now like to call back Yasmin for your second article on the master coppersmith.
Yes, and the first of 2 copper articles this issue. And in fact, Rabindra, I did send through your work to Eldon, and he was really excited to see what you were making. So, you know, I feel like we're drawing connections. So this was an interview with Bosnian coppersmith Eldon Sprecher, who works out of Sarajevo. And I first met Eldon. We just ended up having this really long conversation about craft, and there was just, I can't really describe it, there was some real magic just in the objects. I mean, I'm talking to a bunch of craft people, you will get it right. It's that sort of specialness that sits in a surface when you can tell someone's really labored over it, and there's that kind of real humanness in the metal. And Eldon himself is like, you know, I go into the metal, it's magic. And so I really wanted to find out a bit more of his work. And again, like a lot of articles in this issue, Eldon talked a lot about his practice within a cultural and historical context. There he is. And it's very interesting to walk around Sarajevo now, because you do see mass-produced copper work as well as the traditional craft being practiced. And I mean, for me anyway, there is that sort of like energy or aura that just comes from that physically human tactile quality of handmade objects. But again, yeah, more detail in the interview.
Well, who'd have known that copper would be such a theme, even going back to Jane's work as well. So it's wonderful now to move to Kathmandu, to Gary and Rabindra, who are here. Greetings.
Hello. Hello.
Oh, congratulations on your work and article.
I don't know why I'm seeing myself here. I would like to see something else, but okay. So this is Rabindra Shakia, and following on from Yasmin's copper, Rabindra is a craftsman working in the repoussé technique. And you will see from the article, we'll spend a minute or so on the article, and then I wanted to show you the workshop, because this is one of the most incredible workshops here in Kathmandu, where the repoussé technique has been refined to something you very rarely see around the world. And actually, we have here, I'm going to point, if you're seeing my face, you'll see this hand on the table. This hand is a repoussé copper, and it's gold plated. and it's over 500 years old. And Rabindra was asked to repair it because it had been damaged. So the technique has been going on for generations here, and Rabindra's family has been part of that. So, can I take you out into the workshop?
Please
To
do.
have a look, because I'll switch the camera around and we'll go and have a look. Stand. Can you ask to stop? It's a bit noisy here.
Wow.
Can you hear?
Yes, faintly.
Okay. So this piece Rabindra has been working on for 10 years. And it's going to, where is the monastery it's going to?
In Kathmandu Valley.
It's in Kathmandu Valley.
This big one is.
Yeah. And this one is going to Upper Mustang. And you can see here, the scale of this is absolutely massive. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. I just thought I would like to give you a view of the workshop because it's a very rare sight. And this is a Tibetan piece, and it's entirely made of copper and gold plated. So
Yes, what a
Rabindra
magical
here.
place.
It's an
Congratulations.
amazing place. And
Thank you for sharing it with
Rabindra
us.
has, how many years have you been working? 50 years. 50 years.
No, I am 50.
No, you are 50. Yeah, he's 50, and he's been working since he was like 13, 14?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. But as I explained in my article, this craft is handed down through family. But nowadays, his family are not going to be. His children are not interested to continue. So in a way, it's an art form which will die out inevitably.
Wow, that's sad. But I think you've raised a very important issue in your article, Gary, about the exodus of young people from Nepal, one that we're going to be thinking about quite seriously to understand what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But for the time being, we can really appreciate the beautiful crafts that you share with us through your articles, and especially
thank you.
Precious to see Rabindra here. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, good. And now we go to Ananya, to another part of Southeast Asia. I think you're joining us, Ananya. Wonderful to see you. Where are you?
Kuala Lumpur.
Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia.
Yes.
Terrific. Tell us about your article on the Peranakan tiles.
Yes, so as you know, in Malaysia, there are actually many other communities, like Chinese people. They came here like centuries ago. So the Peranakan community is one of them. They came from China, and then they settled down in some parts of Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore, and they are known as Peranakan, and they have their own culture, like Peranakan shop houses, Peranakan cuisine, and they have also their own adorning elements called these are the tiles called Peranakan tiles. And the Peranakan shop houses are like where they used to live. Now these are very rare, but when they used to build their Peranakan houses, shop houses, they used to build with these Peranakan tiles. And I'm talking about at the time when, there was no technology, no industrialization. So these Peranakan tiles were used to, created in a small batch, mainly handmade, like clay products, like pottery. So it's kind of a pottery. So here, like 5 years ago, when I was visiting to Melaka, a city in Malaysia where most of the Peranakans live now, and their history, their roots go back to there. So then I got fascinated by these tiles. Like you can see, like these tiles are very pretty. They have different motifs they have, and each motif actually comes with a story. I'm not like the artist can tell that this bird is representing this story, like this. So I did a workshop myself, and it was a really transformative and therapeutic. And then I heard the story from my from the artist who was conducting the workshop, and then I really liked it, and I'm a photographer myself, so I really fell in love with this kind of art, and then I
Wonderful.
wrote this story.
So Teremakasi, thank you so much for sharing it. And it's great that you took the plunge to learn by experience.
Yes.
So important, and hope to see you again. Thank you very much, Ananya. Now go to the South Island, I believe, to New Zealand Aotearoa, to Lucy Hammond. Welcome to our launch, and thank you for your article.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
just
you
put it
very
on
much.
screen.
So yeah, I'm calling in from the South Island of Aotearoa. And my article is about Peter Hawkesby, who's a ceramicist who lives in the community here. It was a real pleasure to do the interview with Peter. He's somebody who having worked myself in museums and in the craft and object history space here in Aotearoa, Peter's work was work I was familiar with from his work from the 1980s, which is a really important moment in New Zealand studio ceramics histories. But he's recently moved to the community in which I live, and so it was a really wonderful opportunity to meet him as a contemporary maker, to find out what he was doing. And what was really amazing about the interview process is that when I arrived at Peter's studio earlier in the year to talk about, I think I arrived to talk about the sort of historical trajectory of his practice, as he's one of the sort of senior figures in New Zealand studio ceramics. Really what we did was get off topic very quickly and start talking about a rather sort of singular group of works called heart baskets, which were sitting in the bottom of his studio unfinished, and had a real sense of uncertainty, I think, when I arrived first, from his point of view as to what the future of the works were going to be. And in talking with him about those, it became evident that the conditions of making, he'd made them when he was having a what he called a slow-moving heart attack, or sort of a cardiac episode. And I think the process of not understanding what was happening physically, but working through that process in his usual making at bench, sort of brought a whole new set of considerations and thoughts to how to kind of process what those works were going to be, whether they were going to be works, and if so, what would happen with them. And so over a period of about 4 or 5 months of sort of popping in and out of the studio, it was just really fascinating to see his relationship with the works change over time and sort of settle over the course of the year. And that's sort of what I think made me feel you know, what the genuine relationship was really between his physical relationship with the work and touch through clay, and then this sort of bodily experience. Yeah.
Thank you so much, which shows the therapeutic aspect of touch that we've heard reference throughout this particular launch. So thank you so much, Lucy. We look forward to some more stories from the South Island too in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now it's my great pleasure to welcome Sachiko Tomashiga, who is one of our new perennials in Garland, a regular contributor who's shared with us a very special story about quite a remarkable turn in Japanese craft, which I would pronounce as Chozetsu Kigo, but I'm sure Sachiko pronounces it better. Welcome. Konnichiwa, Sachiko.
Konnichiwa, thank you very much. I'm so pleased to be part of this issue, because I didn't think of, especially my theme of Chozetsu Gikko, which is a sort of transcendent technique in English, and then not particularly thinking of this theme of this issue, touch, but I just happened to come across this exhibition of Chozetsu Gikko artists who are the making. This is like the Kevin showing the wooden sculpture on the Maehara Fuyuki made this dried squid of only one piece of wood. So it's a super realism. But why I'm very amazed by this generation of people. If Kevin-san, you could kindly jump to the Inazaki Eriko's film, would it be possible? The thing is that this one, if you could just run this film, I was astonished by this lady, Eriko Inazaki. This is homemade in ceramics, and in the kiln, burnt all at once. But before that, she created more than 10,000 or 15,000 little rings, and by linking it, and she make almost the cloth or ribbon like that, the textile, but this is homemade in ceramics. And she installed her work almost like dedicated to the shrine or whatever. So what happened is that I was astonished by the sort of this way of making ceramics. For me, is she completely opened a new horizon of ceramics to make it almost like textile. So in a way, the reason I'm a journalist, my personal agenda is two things, which is how the human being could keep a balance between sort of the digital transformation and technique and the handmade things, or so the human touch. Then also another, and so for me, is craft is the last forte for human being to bring the sort of physical experience into the sort of their creation. So that for me, is a craft is quite important for most of the human being or people to hang on this physical experience. And I found this contemporary young generation now started challenging at this meticulous work, which takes what she took 3 years to make this one, two pieces of this one and another one. This one, another one. Anyway, this one, Euphoria and also Armita. And she this time she make this very flexible textile, but she won the prize called Loewe Foundation. Gave the sort of craft design prize, and she got the Grand Prix. So in a way, it really immediately surprised sort of appeal to people without thinking about it. So to me, I have been working in the contemporary art world, but they are slightly the kind of conceptualized victim to think about too much of context of art history or whatever, or sort of other political issue or social issue. But these contemporary artists who has been exposed to the exhibition, which the Meiji craft people made superb works of art about more than 100 years ago. So Kevin-san, would you mind running through? Yes, this is those works, the Meiji craftsmanship. Meiji means about 150 years ago. They make, this is silver, the metalsmith. What happened is that those craftsmen used to be employed by lords and those feudal or very rich people under the feudal system. So, but after the Meiji Resurrection, they became unemployed, and also they are, most of them are sword maker or sword fitter, like sword or armament. So because the samurai period was over, they don't have to make those armament or weapon. So they turned their focus on the making superb metalsmith or the other lacquerware by using their experience. Then recently, they have been exported mostly overseas for the expo, like Paris Expo, and also bought by only rich people because extremely high price, and also imperial family. So most of the Japanese general public didn't know their existence. So, and also they couldn't, those craftsmen couldn't maintain their studio any longer because of first modernization of Japan, and then most of people shifted their focus on the more modern industrial thing like shipbuilding, or sometimes the weapon making, whatever. So then most of the people thought those technique was lost for 100 years. But one Mr. Murata, who has an incredible museum now in Kyoto, started collecting, buying back the superb collection from overseas at the auction, and started showing this superb collection. And the contemporary artists look at it and started thinking, we like to make same sort of thing, and started challenging.
Oh,
and other thing, I like to one thing, that those younger generation didn't think of too much context. They have a dialogue with materials, and they develop their own way to make things in their own way. So that's one of the very new thing. And that's I was very fascinated by
Thank
that.
you so much. That's a really precious story, Sachiko, and it is similar in a way to the cycle of Baroque and modernism that you find in Western art, where you have this adornment, sophisticated, elaborate, rich adornment, which then proceeds to a simplification, as in modernism, or perhaps similar to Minge, which seems to be the antithesis of the Meiji work that you're talking about. So you're bearing witness to a really important time in Japanese craft, and it's wonderful to share it with our readers. Thank you so
for
much.
accommodating me.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you, arigato.
And finally, a very special story from Dana Felcini, or Falsini, Hope I've got it right. Speaking of squid, we've got a very visceral work of yours to share. Thank you so much. If you'd like to tell us about this work. You're on mute.
There we
Adonis
go.
is the
How's
final.
that? I think, sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Ah, good. Okay, so thanks, Kevin, for including me in the issue. And it's been a very exciting journey for me because I've not thought of myself as a writer before. So it's been great. I use a combination of what today would be considered unconventional organic materials, which include hog gut, fish skin, shark skin, and bone. In this piece that I've got up now, it's hog gut, which is really sausage casing. And I clean and process and preserve my materials from scratch, basically. So I've learnt through trial and error and research and experimenting. So it's a lot of hands-on work of scraping and cleaning and drying to get to where I've got today with the work. My story focuses on the use of the hog gut and bones and copper, and oh, sorry, I've lost my thought now. I've become interested in working with animal gut after seeing an Inuit soapstone sculpture of a man holding a drum, and the batter head was made from a little bit of gut, and that just changed my direction in my artwork, and I have not looked back since then. I am very hands-on and a person who uses touch because it's very important to me, as it connects me not only to my emotions, but it keeps me connected to my materials. And staying connected both to these things is an important part of the process. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I've got disturbed there, sorry.
And obviously there's a little bit of copper there as well, which is a nice connection.
Yes.
But the transformation of something like a sausage skin into a stick material shows the power of the hand to be able to do that. And thanks for bearing testimony to that. So we come now to the end before we say goodbye. I'll just say if anyone's got any reflections that they would like to share after hearing these stories. Any thoughts that haven't been said so far?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you for putting out this whole series of editions on the different senses, because it's a really overlooked part of the lived experience, and I think craftspeople are uniquely positioned to talk about the senses. So thanks, Kevin.
Well, wouldn't be anything without the stories that you've provided. So thank you so much for that. I thought it's become a kind of a ritual now to do a Zoom screenshot. So if you'd like, I think if everyone's got their camera on, perhaps Ananya and anyone else who wants to put their camera on, and it might be appropriate if we just show our hand for the screenshot. It's going to be difficult for me. Oh yeah, I can do it. Great. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Fantastic. All hands on deck.